Alignment is about balancing the motion with also the chemistry. So we do biomechanical and biochemical alignment. And you can't fix your mechanics if your chemistry is off, and vice versa.
Welcome to Barbell Shrugged. I'm Mike Bledsoe here with Doug Larson and Kenny Kane. We have traveled up to Venice Beach. We are hanging out at the Human Garage, and we're here with the co-founder, Gary Lineham. And this is the Mind Body Repair and Alignment. And the interesting thing is I've been hearing about this place for about a year, and it was my crazy friends that we're talking about it. You know who you are. They were like, dude, you got to go. It's awesome. Da, da, da. I'm like,
You calling our clients crazy?
Some of them, yeah, because I'm friends with them. Like I know them, and I was like, oh, it sounds interesting. But then I kept hearing about once a month, oh yeah, someone else is coming through my home who's like, yeah, I just left the Human Garage, and I go online and I can't find any information. But you guys are underground.
We are underground, and on purpose. It's
Not anymore though.
So part of the reason why is we didn't have the ability to fulfill the demand that was already there. So it was a lot easier for us to take down the website and just stop the calls. And over the last 2 years, we've been developing a therapy that's completely new and putting it into practice with protocols and procedures and stuff like that, so we could train and have more practitioners. Our practitioners are called motion mechanics because we analyze and repair motion. Whatever doesn't work when you're walking is something that needs to be fixed. And basically, we can, through looking at the human body in motion, we can find and repair anything, or find anything that needs to be repaired, and then apply a repair to it.
Yeah,
So
for any of you that think that this is a typical place to get therapy, I just had his hands in my mouth, and he was massaging the inside of my face. And then I walked better afterwards, so.
that wasn't part of the treatment. That was just that was before you guys started.
But the assessment in the back room.
The assessment.
Follow me into this broom
Come
closet.
into the back room, Mike.
The lights don't work. Don't worry about that.
Mike just got his pants back on. That's a separate story.
Yeah, I mean the movement world, like we come from weightlifting, powerlifting, sports performance. Movement is a huge part of that. Optimum movement, good technique, et cetera, et cetera. People are used to going to chiropractors. People are used to getting body work done, massage therapy, physical therapy, et cetera. This seems to be a lot different than the same old thing that I've seen over and over and over and over and over again, meeting with chiros and physios and orthos. This is not a normal place to get treatment, in my opinion. What makes this different than just going to a chiro or a PT?
Well, first of all, I mean, we use the word alignment, and a lot of times we misuse the word alignment. Alignment's misused in a lot of places. So, first of all, it starts with alignment. Alignment is about balancing the motion with also the chemistry. So we do biomechanical and biochemical alignment. And you can't fix your mechanics if your chemistry is off, and vice versa. So that's the first and foremost. And being able to put people in a situation where they are able to, actually continue to walk and feel good in their walking and their motion. And one of the things that you mentioned before about going to chiropractors and physical therapists, one of the key points or differences we have is we see people through an entire cycle, and a treatment cycle for us today, right now, a single appointment is 2 hours. And it just can't be done unless, going in for 30 minutes for a session or 20 minutes or 15 minutes, you're going to create a change. If you come into me and I touch your body and 15 minutes later you leave, an hour and a half, 6 hours later, something's going to change. But in that first hour and a half, there's so much changes. You have to be able to analyze what the changes are and to help the body adapt to those changes. Because just bottom line is, we also look for the point of origin. So in medicine, we're generally taught to look for a diagnosis. And a diagnosis in itself is actually a symptom. And so we look for a diagnosis and we treat a diagnosis. We end up treating symptoms. So what we're looking for is cause. And one of the biggest things that we don't do is we don't diagnose. So we're fixing and repairing the whole body, and we're starting at cause, and we look at motion as a template. And if whatever is wrong in motion shows what in the body shows up in the motion somehow. So it's a matter of really looking at where that problem is and going to that problem and working backwards from there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you were saying earlier that, if somebody comes in with shoulder pain, you're not necessarily going to just treat the shoulder. You're gonna go from there.
100%. We will not treat shoulder pain. We won't treat an ankle pain. We won't treat a tennis elbow. We treat the entire body. Because if I make one change in one part, as you guys saw today, all we did is a little work on upper body and your face and your jaw, specifically only like 2 groups of muscles, and your posture changed. The way you stood changed. The way you walked changed. So if that much impact comes from one motion or one adaptation in the body, then to think that we can isolate and work on your shoulder without affecting something else is crazy.
Yeah.
One of the things that really struck me, Gary, is I came in about a month ago, maybe a little over a month ago, and I've been talking to the boys about this collaborative integration that you have amongst the team, and that was one of the things that really struck me as part of your practice. Like just walking in, you've got yourself looking at me and 2 other people looking at me simultaneously, and then throughout the session there's 2 or 3 people communicating, talking about like this whole being and trying to fix multiple pieces, but through that network of communication. And I think that's one of the things, like as Mike opens the show and talks about this as being a mind-body repair and alignment shop, and you sort of described that, I think a lot of our listeners are going to understand that as like these, okay, you've got fascial therapies, you've got skeletal therapies, you've got neuromuscular stuff going on. And what you're doing is you're kind of integrating all these things.
Yes.
And then also there's a chemical composition as well. Can you describe what you sort of put me through and the boys through, just so
Sure.
that we don't get too far into and I know that are we going to show the pictures of like our assessments to everybody?
sure.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Sure, I guess
we
when
need
you
to.
when you
Yeah.
see the pictures, then that starts to make one of the things that we first of all need to do is sometimes you can feel something and not see it, and sometimes you can see something and not feel it. We have different senses. And also when I work with one individual, I have my own prejudice and my own beliefs and stuff like that, and sometimes they interfere with me helping somebody. So having more than one person look at somebody at the same time allows us to make sure that the person gets the treatment they need. And it's not prejudiced by my opinion, my backgrounds, my beliefs. I always have a reference point, and that's really important because the body is a fluid-moving organism, and it's always changing. And sometimes I don't change at the exact same speed that you do, Mike. And if
Kenny.
sorry,
It's okay.
I did that twice.
That's all right.
Sometimes I don't change.
I would need a lot more drugs to be Mike.
So sometimes I don't change. My thought process isn't changing as fast as your nervous system is, and it requires a second look.
One of the things I noticed, I thought it was just special for us. When we walked in, there was like a team of people working with us.
Yes.
It was you and another guy, and all of a sudden this third guy jumped in, and then someone else was like, "Oh yeah, did you see that?" And then I noticed that other people were getting treatment in the room. The same exact thing was happening.
Yeah. Yes.
That was pretty cool. I've never had that happen when getting treatment.
Well, that's back to that point of isolation. I think first of all, let me clarify what we have here. We have medical doctor, we have chiropractic, we have massage therapy, we have neurological physical therapist, we have trainers, we have motion mechanics, which is the body work portion of what we do, and then on top of that we have all the support staff, and each one of those people interact with our clients through the course of their protocol here, but sometimes a good portion of them are interacting with the client every day. It's like a motion mechanic, a massage therapist, and a chiropractor. Almost in every session you're going to see them or talk to them, or there's going to be some interaction, and we're always checking. We're fluid. Things change, and if you came in last week and you come in this week, it's often going to be different than it was last week, so we have to constantly be reevaluating the body. I can't build a therapy protocol and put you on it and expect you in 8 weeks to have that same therapeutic needs 8 weeks from now or 7 weeks from now as you did this week. So the idea is it's constant evaluation, and multiple people from multiple disciplines are doing it. The one common point, though, is we have a common set of beliefs about how the human body works, how inside and outside balance is important, and the do's and don'ts of what for the human body. And since we all operate with those beliefs, and this is multidiscipline, so our nutritionist, our medical doctor, our chiropractor, and our body workers and massage therapists all have the same basic set of beliefs. And if that helps the person get through this program without getting different information. I don't know about you guys, but I've been around and I've been to tons of therapists and tons of therapy, and everybody gave me a different viewpoint. And very seldom were they ever the same. And so it was my job in managing my own chronic issues, trying to understand which one was the one I needed. And no one was helping me do that adaptation. So what we are is we're helping those people make that adaptation because we know better, and collectively, if we're on the same page, we can really help somebody.
Yeah, what are some of those beliefs that are common amongst all your practitioners?
Well, one of them is, first one is that the brain really isn't in charge of the body, and there's a lot of mounting science to prove that. I don't want to have that argument or that discussion because that one really ruffles a lot of feathers. But there's a lot of mounting science that proves that's not true. The second one is...
Well, sorry, I know we don't need to dive deep in that, but just roughly what does that mean? Is that like a conscious versus subconscious thing?
Well, it could be
what's the
conscious. Well, there's a couple things. Harvard Medical released a report saying that trauma is stored in the fascial network. So the fascia is in the body. So literally what they're saying without saying it is that your subconscious is where we store our trauma. And so basically the body is the subconscious and the brain is the consciousness. And without pushing the envelope too far, let's just say that's a theory that we work with. And the other one is that you can't balance the biomechanics if the biochemistry is off. And it's real simple. It's like people here, we have a variety of things that go on in our society. Bad food, bad jobs, lots of stress, all those things that are impacting our body. And
then if you're in LA, there's definitely the environmental pollution.
Environmental pollution,
Yeah.
all those things. And, so for example, one of the things that we don't realize is that if you've been taking antibiotics, as an example, and your liver, and you've been drinking and doing your normal thing, your liver's struggling to keep up. So when your liver struggles to keep up, one of the things that's hard for the liver to do is to metabolize protein. And then all of a sudden you have aches and pains. Like I'm a little achy, my joints are achy, I don't recover good in the morning, stuff like that. And so the fact that you're not absorbing protein properly means that your muscles don't recover when you work out, and they tighten up when you sleep at night. Amongst all the other things, adrenals, kidneys, liver, how we digest food, those all have an impact on how our mechanics and how our brain works. And so we have to address all of them. And if somebody's not willing to address all of them, they're probably not our client. And that's really what we're looking for, people who really want to be aligned both inside and outside.
Yeah, so I know I've done this a lot, and I know a lot of people do is they count how many grams of protein they're getting a day. And, I'll get this many grams of protein, this many carbs, this many fats. And when I'm hearing you say that description of what's happening with the liver, even if you're getting, 150 grams today, that could be completely different than what it was a week ago, depending on what your body's been through.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, you put a load on your liver, and your protein and carbohydrate metabolism is going to be different. So it's having an understanding of how your body works. But you can't really understand how your body works till we get it to a baseline, because we need a point of reference, right? And that's why we test people in mechanics. We test them, and then we do an activity, and then we test them again. We're looking for points of reference. So why don't we do that with the entire body rather than just one part of the body?
Yeah.
That's also why you guys are doing blood work with your clients?
Well,
You guys
and
take labs and
so
look at the numbers?
we do some blood work, but we start off with subclinical testing. And this is really important because if you think about how healthcare works in Western medicine and even Eastern medicine practiced in North America, we look at clinical testing. Okay, clinical means blood, literally. It's the end result. And then subclinical is below the blood or before the blood. And if I was to give you an example how that impacts you as a human being, let me use a car analogy since we're at a garage. Okay? So simply, clinical would be how fast is your car moving? It's going 60 miles an hour. Okay, so let's compare you to everybody else. We'll put you on the freeway. Everybody's doing 60. You're doing 60. You're within range. So you're healthy. They're not really saying you're healthy. What they're saying is you're not sick. And there's a difference between being healthy and not sick. Since we only measure sickness, and our healthcare system really measures sickness, there's no indication of like for example, it takes 15, 20, 30 years to develop an autoimmune disease. But we don't actually diagnose it until it actually is. But it didn't happen in 1 year or 1 month. It happened over 20 or 30 years.
Yeah.
So what we look at, first of all, is subclinical testing, and we test the way the subclinical would look from a car perspective is not how fast you're driving, but how fast is your engine running. Because if your engine's running 10,000 RPM, at 60 miles an hour or 2,000 RPM, there's a big difference in how we're going to handle you as a client. And that's the first thing that we know. And then if there's something more significant, then we move into other standard medical or clinical tests.
Yeah, that's really unfortunate that it works that way. It's much harder to reverse a chronic disease state that took decades to develop than it is to simply prevent it in the first place. And it seems like you guys are much further down the prevention track.
So we've done about 2,000 lab tests and subclinical lab tests, and over 50% of the people that we test. First of all, normally you go to get a lab test when you go to a doctor, and you go to a doctor because you're sick. Typical, that's how we do it, right?
It's the only time I show up.
Yeah.
But that's the wrong time to go to the doctor, right?
Shit.
Yeah.
My wife is right.
Again.
So the idea is if you're going to go to do a lab test, what we want to do is we want to have a fairly good idea of what's going on in your body first before we start trying to decide how we're going to help you. And I'll give you a real example. There's a guy yesterday had come in. Muscles don't want to release, tight, pain, just general back pain, general leg pain, just overall level 5 pain. It's been like that for 10 years. And so there's no amount of body work that's helping this guy. When his lab work comes in, then we see that he's chronically dehydrated. Really, really big problem. You know who's chronically dehydrated? Watching the gyms, the guys who carry around white bottles of water, jugs of water. Because water and sodium have to be in balance for us to be hydrated. And when we're chronically hydrated, sometimes it takes 2 months, 3 months to actually hydrate our bodies back up. And knowing that as a case helps the client understand what to do, but more importantly, it helps us understand what we need to do for the client. So it's a matter of just having all the information before we start work.
Yeah. What got you into this?
Chronic pain.
Yeah.
I was a bodybuilder. I was an amateur bodybuilder. Qualified professional, never competed professional, but qualified as professional. And this back in the 80s, I fell under a squat, and I managed my back problem that I had from that squat. And it was a 600-pound squat, like any young kid, kind of stupid. Thought I could do it. It was one rep maximum to see if I could do it, and I fell over backwards and this way.
Oy.
That's the best way to fall with 600 pounds.
The best way is not to fall. So that back injury plagued me, and like when I was in my 20s, it would go up once a year, and I'd be out and I'd manage it through exercise and stretching. One of the things I noticed was funny was that if I wasn't exercising, my back would act up. So why was that? Is because I was strengthening my core against the torquing, and the problem existed and never went away. The tightness in a certain part of my body caused the torquing, and so as long as I was working out and doing my core, I felt good. The second I stopped, all of a sudden there's a problem, and it started showing
I've been
up.
there.
That's a really common experience, in my opinion.
Absolutely. And then so fast forward that, it would go up once a year, then twice a year, then 3 times a year. Then all of a sudden, 1 year it's like 10 times and my back goes out. And each time, sometimes between 1 and 2 weeks, so almost half the year in bed.
Right.
And
Wow.
and that was when I decided that my life had to change, because I was no longer able to manage my compensations and my injuries in the injury cycle through exercise, stretching, chiropractic, physical therapy, and they weren't working anymore. As a matter of fact, to the other side, I was getting worse with each and every treatment. And so I went off on a mission, and I literally have done every form of treatment that I've ever heard of or ever known, and lots of ones that I hadn't heard of. I got to the point where I had guys blowing smoke on me and chanting and all kinds of things because I was so desperate just to feel normal again.
All been there. Yeah, we've all been there.
And really, the goal, what we're trying to do is we're just trying to feel normal for the first time. And what does normal feel like? Well, that's what we want. We want to get people back to that feeling of normality. And once they're there, then they have a baseline, and they know when something's going wrong. We give them the tools to fix it, and themselves, or an indicator that something's wrong, so they don't let a little problem become a big problem. And it's more about educating people about their bodies. So the other thing that happened in that 20 years of trying to fix myself is people gave me different opinions. Every professional I went to, and everybody I knew, because I had a chronic issue, every friend I knew had a solution, because they had a special guy who got them out of a problem. Sound familiar?
Mm-hmm.
And at the end of it, it just was a malaise in my mind, and I didn't know where to go. And as I got more and more dysfunctional, it actually starts to change cognition, because the brain, the job of the brain and the body, is to evaluate the internal and external environment, and then adapt the body to that environment. So when my liver's off and my kidneys are off and my muscles are tight, the brain perceives tightness and all these malfunctions as noise. And these are the noise that we go to try to sedate. That's why a couple glasses of wine or a scotch at the end of the day feels really good, because we got all this activity going on, all this communication to our brain, and our brain's like, oh, shut up, I've had too much. And that's what was going on with me, and I know that's going on with other people, because we see that literally 99% of the times when people come through here.
Yeah.
So a lot of cognitive fog for the people that are coming in.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So remember, cognitive issues are related to body issues. And, well, let me ask you guys. After our treatment, we did 15, 20 minutes of treatment. How did you feel?
Really good. I felt clear, but you also gave me those little,
Curcumin.
yellow pills.
We can talk about that. But
yeah, I thought that was E at first, but yeah, it didn't really hit me like that. I was pretty
it started off
disappointed.
there. I
so
felt
happy. That's
Why
why
is
dance.
Mike
Mike's like, I feel the cool
Where'd the glow
sensation
sticks come
starting, but nobody's dancing.
That's right.
So the idea is that when you calm so what happens is, as our body, when a muscle's tight, let's talk about what happens. A muscle gets tight, it sends a signal to the brain, says I'm tight. And the brain then tries to resolve it. And the way it tries to resolve it is it gives us a little boost. And what is that boost? Adrenaline, noradrenaline, norepinephrine. Stress hormones. Get up, do something. And then if we can't fix it, the brain just shuts off awareness to it. The problem doesn't go away and the signal doesn't stop, but the conscious brain no longer recognizes it. So the conscious brain can only understand and deal with 3 pains at any given time. The 4th one becomes unaware, and that's called subclinical pain. And everybody has about 70, 80 little aches and pains, and they're just not aware of them. And so what happens is, and what's funny, because our clientele, like yours, Kenny, is a lot of celebrities. So we have a lot of industry people. So I'm sitting here having the conversation because our whole process is to educate our clients on the table. And the guy's a sound engineer. He's mixing sound for Star Wars. And I tell him this, and he goes, that's funny, because I can only mix actually 3 sounds into a movie. If I mix a 4th one in, it's white noise. And that's the first time I ever heard that back. But what that was saying to me is it's the same thing that happens to our brain. The 4th sound or noise is white noise. So we get all this white noise, and that's what causes the malaise in our brain. So all these signals going to our brain 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, saying, fix me. And then our network, it's our neural network, just like anything else, gets overloaded. And as it gets overloaded, cognitive function dismisses. The brain robs energy from your senses: sight, touch, sound. And so basically your senses narrow, taking energy away from that so it can focus on the problem.
And then maladaptive movement patterns too.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's funny. I mean, I've had this experience where we were talking a minute ago about trauma being stored in the fascia.
Yeah.
And I've had experiences of emotional trauma being stored in the body.
Yeah.
And then you heal that emotional trauma, and all of a sudden you actually see things differently.
Correct.
Like
yes.
that sunset you see that night.
Yeah.
Is
so much better.
It's like, oh, I've never seen a sunset before. That was interesting.
Well, so that's back to the point. So the brain perceives. So the brain's job is to evaluate the body, and it's looking in all these things, like these muscular problems, there's nervous system problems, digestive problems. They're like putting on layers of glasses, like tints and glasses. If you keep putting too many shades on, eventually you can't see anything.
Yeah.
And that's that progression. The reason why it's so hard for us to understand this is this happens over decades, not over days. And so what the job of the brain is to normalize our situation. So if it can't fix something, it just makes it normal.
Yeah.
And that's why it's so hard for us to understand, because our brain's always making things normal. And what we do is we start at the process and we wake the brain up, and in making things normal, we shut off awareness to things that the brain can't fix. So by re-engaging and resolving those issues, removing trauma from the fascia or the body, then what happens is the brain starts to be re-engaged again.
Yeah.
And what that does to the person is instantaneous increase in cognition and performance. And it's noticeable at every single treatment, and that's why we didn't have a website and a sign and stuff like that, because when people feel good, they tell people about it. That's really what it comes down to.
Yeah, that's how I came to you.
That's right.
I mean, we share a mutual client, and he was really insistent that I get in and just see you, just so, I understood what he was doing with you, but then also our conversations are very similar as far as like trying to look at this thing holistically. But what you've got here is a very sophisticated approach. I mean, as you're talking, I'm thinking about like Joe Dispenza's book, all the fascial work that's been coming out over the last 20 years. And then the very rapid sort of understanding with biomechanics over the last, 15, 20 years, but all that's like being chunked into one very elaborate, smooth thing here.
Yeah.
How did you come up with the name The Human Garage? I mean,
That's funny.
That almost sounds like, if people don't know, it might as well be some German guy going, yes, come to the Human Garage. We may touch you like this. Just relax.
So
Well, let's take a break and then we'll hear that.
okay.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, welcome back to Technique WOD. Today we're talking about technique and progressions for strict pull-ups. All right, so if you watched episode 180 of Barbell Shrugged, 81.
181.
I even did this one time, and I didn't remember from last time. So episode 181, which I was closer on this take. Last time I said 179. 181, a Barbell Shrugged, we talk about shoulder health and pull-up strength and all the related topics around that. And so today, obviously, we're going to talk about the technique behind pull-ups and progressions. If you can't do a pull-up, how to get to a pull-up, and then if you already can do a single body weight strict pull-up, we can talk about how to make it harder and how to get stronger and kind of go to the next level. That way you can get onto muscle-ups and other advanced gymnastic skills. So as far as technique, there's two things you have to be able to do. You have to be able to get into a good starting position and a good finish position, and then of course you have to eventually connect the two. So if we go to a good starting position, if Mike has a good grip on the bar, where ideally if you look at his wrist, you can't really see it from the front probably so well, but his wrist is all the way over the bar like this. He's not just hanging on his fingers like this. He's kind of flexed at the wrist just a little bit, and his knuckles are over the top of the bar. That way the bar itself is actually right below all of his calluses, and he has a better grip on the bar in that position, okay? And then also you'll notice that his thumb is all the way around the bar as well. Having his thumb all the way around the bar makes it where he has a better grip on the bar, and he's less likely to lose his grip and fall just like that. So have your thumb all the way around the bar. And then also, if Mike hops back up there, no time. Okay. You can see Mike has his feet slightly out in front of him. That kind of automatically puts him in a hollow position where his abs are turned on and his ribs are down. I'll go and do it wrong for a second. Put your feet behind you. See, with his feet behind him, he's not in a terrible position here, but you can see his ribs are kind of popped out and his back is maybe slightly hyperextended. Mike's actually holding a good position here where he's squeezing his glutes and his ribs are not in a terrible position. See if you can do it worse. Go and do like a half a pull-up. There, you see a lot of people doing a pull-up like that where they're kind of making that C shape where they're hyperextending their low back, they're popping their ribs way out, and they're kind of scorpioning.
get over it.
Yeah, dude, that was my favorite game for so long, Mortal Kombat. I played the shit out of that game when I was like 12 years old. And Killer Instinct. The game was the shit too. So if you scorpion your feet behind you, kind of in this position here where you're bending your knees and you're popping your ribs forward, that's not a very good position to be in. It's okay to go into kind of more global flexion where your hips are forward, you're in full hip extension, you're squeezing your butt and your ribs are down, but once you break and you kind of end up in this position where I get more range of motion out of my low back, that can be very hard on your low back, and it doesn't give you very good pulling mechanics with your upper body either. So you don't want to go into that position. So what you do want to do, if we rewind just a little bit, hop back up, Mike's going to have his feet slightly out in front of him, and by having his feet out in front of him, it kind of turns his abs on a little bit, pulls down his rib cage, and then from there, you can see he's in full shoulder flexion, and when he initiates the pull, he's going to pull his shoulder blades down and back, and then pull himself all the way up to the bar. There you go. Good. And if there you go. So go ahead and hop up just for a second. So you see, as Mike's pulling himself up, he's more in that globally extended position, which again, being globally extended is okay with your ribs down and your butt turned on. That's one style. He wasn't hyperextended with his legs behind him like we just mentioned. The other style is to stay all the way hollow throughout the entire movement. So if he does the other style where he keeps his feet out in front of him, keeps his ribs down, that's the other style for doing a strict pull-up, being in that fully hollow position the entire time. So go ahead and one more time, we'll talk about the final points of performance. Okay, feet out in front, ribs down, fully extended, or rather flexed at the shoulder, elbows locked all the way out straight, and basically he's in a nice solid position here. If you can hang on that position for 30 seconds, you're probably good enough to progress to some other parts of the pull-up. If he hops down. So I like to be able to test that position first, make sure you can get into a full dead hang position and be in a proper position. The other position is to be all the way chin over the bar at the top of the movement. And I like to put a bar right down about collarbone height. That way, for someone who's never done a pull-up before, or they're maybe just not very good at pull-ups, they're not very strong, and they have trouble in that top position, they can just walk up to the bar, set themselves in a perfect position where, again, they have that perfect position with the hand where their calluses are all the way over the bar. The bar is all the way to their collarbones. Their chin is over the bar. They have a neutral neck. They're not like doing this thing where they're reaching and trying to hold, and the bar's actually like way up here. Okay, they're in a good position all the way at the top, and then of course his feet are on the ground right now. What he can do at this point is just try to lift his feet up off the ground and put his feet out in front of him, just like we did that hollow position. Just try to hold this hollow position just like that the whole time. Easier said than done if you were brand new to pull-ups.
Like me.
Like Mike, you've never done pull-up before. So those are the two places I like to start. Make sure you can do a perfect hang position and a perfect chin over bar position. If you can hold each one of those for 30 seconds, then you're probably strong enough to start working some of the other progressions for pull-ups, which is what we're going to talk about next. What I like to do with people that can't do a full pull-up with their body weight is to not just throw them on a band. I think everyone's relatively comfortable scaling with a band and putting a band underneath your foot and whatnot. So we're not really going to talk about that here today. We're going to talk about other ways to scale pull-ups. Ring rows is another way that people tend to scale pull-ups. There's a lot of value in that. You work some of the same muscle groups, obviously, but it's more of a horizontal pulling pattern where I'm pulling front to back rather than vertically. So today we're going to do kind of a modified ring row, except we're going to do it with more of a vertical pull. So if we look over at Mike, you can set the rings up right around chest height, and then you can put your feet on a box where, with your hips as low as possible, see Mike's still going to be pulling in a pretty vertical fashion. You can see at the bottom it might be hard for him to get all the way into full flexion, but he's getting pretty close. You can probably make some adjustments with the rings and the height of the box and change that positioning around to maybe get that last few degrees of range of motion where instead of only getting to about right here, he can get all the way overhead. But for the most part, I actually really like this. It's something that you can put into a Metcon relatively easily. Most gyms have enough boxes and enough rings to where you could set that up and have a large group class at a CrossFit gym. Throw those in, and you could be doing sets of 10 or 15 or 20 in a workout relatively easily, depending on your population. So that's a good place to start. Another way that I also like to do it that's a little bit more difficult but has its set of benefits is to put a box right behind a pull-up bar and or a barbell. In this case, since all these pull-up bars are pretty high, we use the barbell. And then you can see Mike's putting the top of his foot on the box, and then he's getting all the way up onto his toes as he gets all the way to the top. So he's hanging all the way down. You can see in this case, he actually gets all the way to that full overhead position. And then at the top, it's a little funny at the top if you've done this before, depending on your exact setup. But like in this case, it's hard for Mike to get all the way to the top without having to like kind of push with his leg a little bit and reach. Which is kind of why he's like reaching with his chin a little bit. And the bar rolls a little bit too. So it's not a perfect setup, but I do think there's a lot of value here to this type of drill. Obviously Mike doesn't do this drill very often because he doesn't need to, but as you get used to it, then it becomes a good way to practice pull-ups with just using a percentage of your body weight by having just your feet on the box where you can actually hang all the way vertical in a separate fashion that you can't really get putting your feet on the box out in front of you, which was the first drill that we showed you. All right, the next exercise that we're going to do in this progression is to move on to an eccentric pull-up, which basically means that you're going to do just the down portion of the pull-up and you're going to go nice and slow while doing it. So if Mike hops up to the top, either by jumping on a box, there you go, hop all the way up to the top, he's in that hollow position, and then he usually will go between 5 and 10 seconds on the way down, something like that. Or in some people's case, you just say, just go, take as much time as you need, go as slow as you possibly can. And, in their case, they'll go as slow as they can, but it only lasts 5 or 10 seconds. If you can't do like a 10-second eccentric, can't at least do one 10-second eccentric, then you probably don't need to do, three sets of 5 eccentrics. That's probably still a little bit too too much load for you quite yet. You might want to still do the majority of your volume as rep work with all the other scaled variations, and or doing bent rows and other non-pull-up variations that still make the same muscle group stronger. So if Mike hops up there, what I like to do is do like a 2 or 3 second hold at the top, get a good hold, and then do like 5 or 10 seconds on the way down, nice and slow. And then at the bottom as well, try and do like a 2 or 3 second hold. There you go, beautiful. So what you'll find is that a lot of people, they will be here, and then as they go down, they'll accelerate, and then they'll kind of just fall off at the end. And they won't control the last little bit of the range of motion. They'll kind of just fall all the way through, fall on the ground, then hop back up, and then kind of just fall to the ground again. So if Mike can demo that.
Uh-oh.
All right, kind of like that. Perfect. So if you see your people doing that, it's either an effort thing, a coaching thing, as in they just don't know they're not supposed to do that, or something. And then if you go over there and now they're fully aware of exactly what they are supposed to be doing and not supposed to be doing, and they still can't do it, they're just not physically strong enough, then again, you might want to regress them back to one of the things that we discussed earlier in the video. All right, so obviously if you can do a couple of eccentric pull-ups, then you're well on your way to doing just strict pull-ups for reps, hopefully. So that's the next variation that people are probably relatively familiar with. So just go and knock out a few strict pull-ups. There you go. So feet out in front, beautiful. See, he's not reaching with his chin. He's pulling the bar underneath his chin. Beautiful.
So fucking jacked. Look at him.
If you want to add a little bit of weight to your pull-up, a couple ways. You can always just put a med ball in between your legs and do it like that. Watch him jump. He hadn't thought about this until just now. Oh, nice job. Oh, no.
Well, it would help if I didn't grab the center.
Okay, if you want, you can just have a partner give it to you. Just like that.
Partner, give it to me, baby.
Give it to your partner. So you can do that. Same thing.
That's after exercise as well.
What was the weight on that?
Oh, it's a massive 4 pounds.
40 pounds.
It's 40 stones.
As I drop the ball and it bounces.
Or you could just, if you have dumbbells work pretty well too. Again, they can just cross their feet. Cross your feet. There you go. Just set it in there just like that. And you can actually do that with relatively heavy weight. It makes it a lot harder to be in that hollow position, but it definitely adds some weight to your pull-ups. I didn't grab any kettlebells, but you can just hook your foot underneath the kettlebell, kind of like this, kind of like that, and just pick up a kettlebell as well. That works pretty good. And then if you actually have a real weight belt where you can actually put it around your waist and strap up some real weight, that's the better way if you're going to actually put on 50, 100, 150, 200 pounds on a weighted pull-up, which people can do, so something to shoot for.
Or you do the Andrea Egger deer pull-up.
Or if you have a very heavy stuffed hunting decoy deer, you could put that between your legs and try to headbutt it on the way.
Yeah, turn it around.
So that's how you can add weight to your pull-up. Also, there's no reason to get stuck in just doing a regular pull-up all the time. There's many other variations of pull-ups you can do. Obviously, you can do a chin-up where your palms are facing you. If I want to demo one chin-up, there you go. I'm actually a really big fan of chin-ups, as I mentioned on the show, because being palm toward you like this, it makes you put your elbow in front of you, and it makes you be very externally rotated, especially at the top of the movement. You're all the way here, which puts your shoulder in a much more stable position, being externally rotated while in full flexion. So I really like to do chin-ups with pretty much any of our athletes. That way they're not stuck just doing regular pull-ups all the time. I think there's a whole nother set of benefits to doing the chin-up. Also, if we're going to use hanging with that supinated grip in that fully flexed position on the bar, I think you get a little more range of motion by being with that grip position. So if you watch Mike hop up on the bar like that, hanging hollow like that, you can see that he's not actually all the way at the bottom. He has a little bit of a angle there, right? And so this is a good drill for guys like Mike to do that are like just a hair out of being able to get into full flexion. They can just hang in that chin up position and treat it like it's its own separate mobility drill. So I like that a whole lot. Other variations, you know, you could just be creative with it and maybe grab, you know, right here and right there, and do a pull-up on an angle like that. You know, there's nothing wrong with that. Anywhere that you can grab, where you can pull yourself up and down, is a great spot to do a pull-up, in my opinion. You don't have to be even. You know, you could grab one bar here and another bar that's higher. It doesn't necessarily matter. The more variety, the better for the most part. Another one that I like, I think some people call these commando pull-ups, where you grab the bar this way and you go shoulder to shoulder. There you go, beautiful. You could always just throw one of these little V handles. You know, these are common if you have like a cable machine at a Globo gym or something. You can just throw that over like that.
Godspeed, Mike.
There you go, beautiful. Then you might have to go side to side still. There you go. I actually really like V handles and or anytime you get some parallel bars. So if you have real parallel bars, or the rings are actually a very good choice as well. Anytime your hands are in front of you like this, it's more likely that your elbows are going to be in and you're going to be out of this kind of elbows out, internally rotated position. It puts you externally rotated in front of you. So again, it puts you in a better shoulder position. You're less likely to beat up your shoulders when you're doing pull-ups of that type. Obviously, you could always do strict pull-ups on the rings as well, and there's a million different variations you could do. Just set the rings. Not a lot of people talk about this, but you want to set the ring from the point of your finger to the tip of your elbow. That's called your cubit, and that's how wide the rings should be. So if you're ever setting the rings as far as width, that's where you want to put them. So as far as variations, you could just not think about it at all and just pull and just see where you go, and there's nothing wrong with that. Perfect. Or yeah, you gotta wiggle your legs as much as possible. Or you can try and intentionally, you know, keep your arms like this, where the rings are flat towards you, your palms are towards you, or you can go even, or you could intentionally keep them out. They're all, you know, none are necessarily better than the other. They're just fun variations to play with. Rope climbing is always a good idea if you do a strict rope climb. Strict rope climb. Without using your legs is obviously going to be good for your vertical pulling strength. But if you have a rope, you can always just do kind of like towel pull-ups.
I don't have grip right now. I haven't done pull-ups in so long. My grip is done today.
Okay. All right, Mike couldn't do a pull-up on the little rope, and so we found an actual athlete to do it for us. So Liz is going to make Mike feel real bad, I hope. Can you do it?
Oh, there we go.
Oh, like it's nothing. She can crank out like 10 of these.
Yeah. How do you do that?
Well done. Good job.
Sorry.
Don't leave CTP hanging. Yeah, I wouldn't give her one either. All right, thanks, Liz. All right, if you want more variations of pull-ups, watch episode 181. We talk all about pull-ups. If you want more Technique WOD videos like this one, you can go to barbellshrugged.com. Click on the Technique WOD tab at the top of the page, and there are more videos like this in the library. We'll see you another day.
Try it again, Mike.
Oh, he just needed motivation.
So the name Human Garage, that's an interesting one. So I had a clinic, 2 clinics actually, one in Beverly Hills, one in Orange County, and they were focused around stress and anxiety as a sports medicine, neuromuscular therapy. And we were trying to figure out why this therapy, I had a therapy that was maintaining me, and I did it twice a week. And we were trying to figure out why, for me, it only worked twice a week. Or why I had to do it twice a week. Why do I have to repeat it? Why could everybody else, we do a therapy, they walk away, and 6 months later, they're still good? And why is it me, it lasted like 3 days? And the answer to that question, we started working in the clinic, but it was really, really obvious that what we were doing wasn't the same as everybody else in the clinic. And so instead of creating a distraction in the clinic, we went home to my garage every day in Venice, and we practiced, because we just had this belief that we were missing something. And we had a single discovery about how muscle, one particular muscle, the adductor, how it actually impacted the body. And that discovery was really, really crazy, because my right adductor was wound up, and it literally wound up like a rope. And it took like about 6 hours to release it. But when we released it, my whole body changed. And so that was the start of it. But this is the funny part was we took our first client in the garage because people used to walk by all the time. We lived by a rec center, and this guy that had back surgery, and people would, like you guys, massage therapist, sign me up for the massage, all the stupid things people would say on the way by. This one guy had back. He came in. He had back surgery, but he wasn't out of pain, and he'd had back pain for 10 years. And so eventually he says, "I think this will work for me." And we just kind of finished what we thought was a protocol and we called it a posture correction protocol, and it was 4 sessions. And so we said, 4 sessions, posture correction protocol. You can start tomorrow. So we actually treated him in the garage, and then he told a few people, and they all of a sudden we went from the garage to an apartment just because it's a little hot outside, and it's in Venice in summertime. And then with like crazy, my phone started ringing, and within 3 months, there was about 150 people. Within 6 months, 300 people a month were coming to a 900 square foot apartment in Venice. They would literally knock on the door and say, "I heard about you from such and such. I got your address. Can you help me?" Or they would call my phone all day long, and we had no systems, we had no protocols, no scheduling software. We just had tables up, and literally I ripped all the furniture out of a 900 square foot apartment, and the 3 of us went to work, and we were there for a better part of a year and a half in an apartment just trying to figure this out. And in the meantime, we were helping a lot of people, but to be honest and truthful, that was our experimentation. We were helping people, and they were getting benefit, but through each and every treatment, we saw repeating patterns, and those patterns became part of a therapy that exists today.
So what are some of the most common things that you guys have corrected in the past, and what does it look like to fix those problems?
You mean like common ailments?
Yeah, people come to you with back pain or shoulder pain or they just low energy or whatever.
It's all of those, and that's why it's so hard to be specific. Like, we don't fix shoulders, we don't fix elbows, we don't fix knees, we don't fix digestion. We repair the human body. And when you realign the posture in the human body and you realign the chemistry in the human body, everything just seems to work well. And things that aren't working well seem to have a chance to heal themselves. Our body really has only 2 specific modes: parasympathetic, which is rest and recover, and sympathetic, which is fight or flight. And there's no gray area. Either you're in your fight or flight, or you're in rest and recover. And most of us are in in fight or flight 24 hours a day. And that's probably upwards of 90% of the population, for a lot of reasons: digestive issues, immune issues, back pain, neck pain. If you're going to sleep and your neck is out, you roll around, you keep waking up, you can't even get sleep. So taking somebody and realigning their posture gives the body the chance to do what it's supposed to do. We firmly believe one of our founding beliefs was the human body was designed to heal itself. We didn't have doctors, 3,000 years ago. So how did people work? I used to sit and watch things like Game of Thrones and said, "Man, what would happen if that happened to me?" Yeah, like, where would I go? And the idea that the human body, there had to have been things in our past that we did that we don't do today. The barefoot running is picked up a lot of momentum because of what it does. Well, we were designed to walk 60,000 steps a day. And we're designed to walk approximately 10 or 11 miles a day.
Fitbit, almost.
Dude, I float between 15 and 30.
That's awesome, because that's a way that walking is a way that the body biomechanically rebalances itself.
But I'm on flat surface too, so I'm almost good.
Well, it's still not bad. I mean, but the whole point is that the average person's walking less than 2,000 steps today. And interestingly enough, do you know that the incidence of back pain, neck pain, shoulder pain, ankle pains, all that stuff in New York is 40% less than it is in LA?
Because they walk.
Everybody walks.
What about San Francisco? Do you know any stats on San Francisco?
No, I don't. It's
just a similar city.
Yes, it would be similar. But the idea is that you can. There was a graph that I looked at, which was literally, it talked about the decline of walking, and it showed, and the graph had a sharp drop down this way. So on the X angle, saying this is the steps that people walked. The converse opposing graph was the amount of body pain, disease, and dysfunction in the body. And there was even a guy, a scientist, who wrote a book called Walk Your Blues Away. He's a PhD, did a long study, and he talked about how walking, a very, very articulated study, talks about how walking even dealt with depression. And that was the primary mechanism. And so one of the things, we walk, or we don't walk anymore. That's a big problem. The next thing is we sit down. When we sit, we actually crush our diaphragm. And the body has to do 3 things well in order for us to function. We have to be able to respirate, we have to be able to digest, and we have to be able to sleep. Any one of those is compromised, and the rest of it's like a house of cards comes tumbling down. So we're designed to squat, like this. And when we squat, we open up our, first of all, you force this diaphragmatic breathing when you squat. You can't breathe through your shoulders. Second of all, when you squat, it opens up your hips for mobility, because we're supposed to be in motion. We defecate this way. We are actually, we give birth this way. If you go to China right now, my nephew's over in China. We have factories over there, family business. He's working, and since I told him this, he always sends pictures of guys in suits. So he'll go to a train station and be 50 guys squatting like this talking. We just don't do these. Those are two of the major things mechanically that we no longer do well. And if we take something out of a routine that's designed to balance the body, we need to add something in as a compensatory mechanism. And since we don't walk and we sit too much, then the workouts and the stretches and the exercises that we need to do have to take that into account, and we don't.
Yeah.
Think about yoga. Yoga is thousands of years old, but thousands of years ago, people walked around and didn't eat all this bad food. And so we are just generally, and you guys are dealing with this, and especially in sports and when people are working out, is that their anterior chain is tight. And when the anterior chain is tight, it pulls the neck forward, shoulders forward, and puts all the weight onto the quads and the shins and the balls of the feet, causing knee problems, shoulder problems, neck problems, stuff like that. If we were to think about it, if I did it stretching completely balanced, every muscle balanced in my body, then I would just be that much more unbalanced. Everything would be, am I saying that the right way?
Yeah, we're tracking.
So if you're stretching all the muscles in your body, you're not actually doing anything corrective.
Right. You need to stretch the ones that are tight, not all of them.
Yeah, we've talked about that before. So many people just stretch.
Yeah.
But are you wasting your time stretching a hamstring that's not short when
Correct.
you could be stretching, a hip flexor that actually is?
Correct. And so part of our process is to rebalance people and then teach them these things, and more importantly, teach them about their bodies. When somebody comes in and says, "Just fix me," again, they're not our client. Our clients we're talking to them, we're explaining, we show them. You saw that, Mike? Did I show you that earlier? No, I was with you, Kenny. So what we do is when we walk through, we before we release a muscle or group of muscles, we actually take out an application. We actually go through it. We show them exactly what muscles we're going to release. We show them why. Like, I'll give you one here, abdominal wall. So
by the way, if you're listening on audio only right now, he has an iPad and he's showing us diagrams of anatomy and whatnot. So go watch the video.
So this is good one. So this is a abdominal wall. Most people think of abs as being up front here. It's our six pack. But this, if I isolate this and show it to you, look how far that sucker goes back. All the way. That's still my abdominal wall right there.
Yeah.
And then what's more importantly is I start peeling them back layers, and each layer has a different direction. Isolate it again. Look at that. It goes back further. And hide it. Isolate it again. And so what we do is we explain to people exactly how it works. Look how far back that goes. And then we get to, now here's my favorite part. Here's the 10-pack, all right? Now, I don't know about you guys, but I traded my 10-pack in for a keg right after college. Why have 10 when you can have one?
That's right.
And so this is what everybody thinks abdominals are.
Right.
But abdominals are the entire
That's
wall.
such a small piece.
Right. And so what we want to do is we want to show them this, then we do our work. We want to show them that, like, one of the major problems that people have is like tight adductors, right? But what adductor and which one's tight? So we're finding these patterns, like an adductor magnus is tight usually, and when it gets tight, what's interesting about this is this is the back view of an adductor magnus. There's 3 contact points here. So when this one shortens, it shortens here and it shortens here simultaneously. Means it's also the vector or angle of force of that shortening is right there.
Q angle.
And then what happens, we have a curving here, so it's another vector here. So the adductor, literally, if I was to pull it up, the adductor is trying to do this and this.
Yep.
And you can't walk like that. So the compensation is it uses the shoulder and everything here, picks it up and rotates it back. So now we have rotation in the body. I don't know what you guys have been taught, but when I learned biomechanics and I learned about the body, we didn't account for 2 of the biggest influences in the body: rotation and gravitational force.
And MC Hammer's old dance moves.
That's right.
For sure.
So rotation, and you think about it, at sea level, we're walking around with approximately, between gravitation and atmospheric pressure, 2,000 pounds of pressure on us. And we have that 2,000 pounds of pressure every day. And as we're standing up, all those muscles are actually literally fighting against gravity. So when one's tight, it doesn't do its job. All the other ones have to compensate. And if you start looking at that, so people say, well, I got this tightness up here in my jaw, my SCM's tight. So what do you think's causing that? Well, that's going to be actually down here in these adductors. They're tight because if you think about gravity,
You're
it's pulling
crazy.
down.
You're crazy.
But that's why this whole re-looking at the body in a different way has helped us to understand the body literally in a different way, and that's what we do our therapy with a new understanding. It's the way we see the body.
It's interesting. You went through Mike's SEM to get through his adductor when you were working with me, and all three of us you put through the protocol of sticking the finger in the mouth into the back just behind the teeth and then pressing. For me, it was the iliacus and psoas that started to get released, and then one of your motion mechanics was sort of releasing that. And it took about 2 or 3 people to really get me to open up down there. And that was, that was my sacred garden that needed a little bit of work. How are we going to get it? In through the mouth. Okay. Didn't see that coming.
Well, see, the interesting thing
Wait
was
till the next treatment.
Interesting thing
on
both of you two is that your atlas and your occipital had such a hold that your hips, the slight anterior tilt in your hips are more, not even anterior, it's more of a pull up. It looks anterior, but if I measured, a typical test would have showed you at neutral, but it's more pulled up. And as soon as we let go of your jaw, everything settled down, your posture changed. I guess they're going to see that on the picture, right?
Yeah.
The before and after pictures of us?
I mean, I can show it here, too.
We'll be posting them. You want to just edit it in, Hunter? Yeah, he'll edit it in.
Oh, okay,
so we don't need to look at it right here.
Thanks, Hunter. You're awesome.
What are some of the chemical balances? I mean, obviously the digestion, sleep, and how you breathe is going to impact you hormonally and everything else. I see some bottles and some tinctures and some essential oils and some functional foods over there.
Yeah.
What I'm assuming those all play a part in the biochemical balance.
Sure. Actually, first of all, let's talk about supplementation. What is supplementation? Supplementation is compressed and condensed food. Make sense?
Yep.
So food is our medicine, unequivocally, and when we take supplements, we're actually taking medicine. So our first and foremost, we don't believe in long-term supplementation. Once we get the body, we measure the body, see where it's out of balance chemically. Once we bring the body back into balance, and then we use a lab, it's in Orange County, and they do subclinical testing. They're called Cure Ecology, and they're different because I think there's only about 150 practitioners right now using this. And one day I believe everybody will, all the practitioners. But when we do subclinical testing, the interesting thing that happens is it'll come up with a protocol of both diet and supplements, and that's usually for from 3 to 6 months. After that protocol, all the other things like the functional food items are the items to help keep us balanced, because it's just hard. Our food supply is tainted. We don't have proper growing procedures. We grow out of season. We do all kinds of things that our bodies aren't meant to. So we use functional food items. I have a smoothie every day with some probiotics and nutrients in that smoothie. I take an adrenal support once, twice a week, just depending on my workload, and aminos once in a while if I don't eat well, and that's it. And this is a divestiture from $600 a month worth of supplements for 10 years. So the idea is get the body back into balance, and part of what we use is the medication, which is supplements, to get the body back into balance and keeping it in balance. Interesting things: you can use essential oils, you can use functional food, you can use meditation, you can use yoga. All those things now have a real impact on the body, where they're helping to correct or bring us back into balance. Because a lot of those things that we're doing right now, and the one thing I learned, the hardest point was in supplementation, is I used to bag on all the doctors because they're being educated by pharmaceutical companies, right? Then I had 2,000 hours in supplement nutrition training over the course of my life, continuing hours and courses and stuff like that. Only to realize when I did my first subclinical test and found out that I was whacked out too, that obviously something wasn't working. And then it dawned on me that actually the people that had provided my education were the supplement companies. So I was doing the same thing that the doctors were doing, that I was complaining that they were doing.
Right.
And so the idea is where we get our education is really important. And we're educated by media, and we're educated by people who have corporate interest. So the idea is to really understand how my body works, and then be able to give it what it needs. And there's a variety of ways to get it there, but the first things first is that when your body's chemically and mechanically balanced, or as best it can be, then you know what good feels like.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you know what good feels like, it's really easy to determine what bad feels like.
Yeah.
It's kind of like if you're going to break your diet, like if you're exercising and you're dieting, if you're dieting, you want to exercise, and if you're exercising, you want to diet. But if you're stop exercising, then heck with the diet, right? We just keep eating, and that's the way our brains work.
Yeah. I've had many iterations of that. I think these two guys would agree, where we got to a new level of feeling good, and then you're like, how the fuck was I operating
doing?
like
Yeah.
that?
Yeah.
And I've had people do that. I've worked with athletes before where, like, yeah, just go from 6 to 8 hours of sleep. And 2 weeks later, like, what?
Yeah.
Or, like, let's just cut this one food out of your diet.
Yeah.
And it just blows their mind. And I remember one woman I was coaching at one point. She was like, oh, I thought my stomach was supposed to do that after I ate. Like,
Right.
it was upset every time she ate.
Right.
And she thought that was normal. She cut out the gluten, and all of a sudden she was like, oh, wow, like, when I eat, like, it kind of just, like, I don't have the stomach pain. Weird.
You know what? You're cutting on something that's really, really, really important. In society, we abdicated our rights to know our body to clinical professionals.
Mm-hmm.
And we no longer have the education or are willing to teach our kids what to do. So we teach our kids. I didn't know what a tummy ache felt like, and like little things. You're not supposed to like push when you take a bowel movement. You're supposed to let it come out. Like there's all kinds of little things. Like our nutritionist, one of our nutritionists, she's like, I didn't know that I wasn't supposed to push when I peed, and I was just supposed to let it flow. And there's all these little things because we're just not taught. And we're not taught because our system of education has, we know nothing about the body. We're taught that if we exercise and eat healthy, that we're maintaining our human vehicles.
Or if you live out in nature, you probably don't need the education. But because we're living in boxes,
Yes.
the education becomes necessary.
I would actually slightly disagree, or just modify that. I think we're...
You can't disagree with me, Kenny.
No.
What the hell?
There's actually a ton of information. It's just hard to discern
Yeah.
the
Fair enough.
information.
Fair enough.
I
Yeah.
think that there's so many interests moving. Some uneducated, don't know, don't care. So there's that population. Then there's the population that cares. But then the population that cares has an enormity
Too much
of
noise.
So much noise.
So but really the way it's supposed to work is my father as a child is supposed to teach me how my body works. My mother's supposed to teach me. That education's supposed to happen, but it doesn't, because it's like when you're sick, you go to the doctor. And that's
Right.
what we've always been taught. So I agree with you 100%.
Yeah, it's interesting when you talk about, well, we were talking off air about autoimmunity. One of the things that you were talking about earlier at the show that you said apparently ruffles some feathers, but I don't know if there's necessarily disagreement with these guys. It's just how much the body talks to the brain, because I know all three of us have been trying to study as much as we can the last several years on that relationship. I forget if is it 400 billion nerves connecting the stomach to the brain. I mean, that's just a starting point amongst many
Okay,
others.
but let's put it this way. Fascia covers every muscle, every organ, every tissue. Holds roughly 75% of our nerve endings, about 75% of our lymph nodes, maybe thereabouts. I could be off on the numbers a bit, and holds most of the water in our body. So the fascia has 100 trillion cells.
That's a big number.
Yeah, well, it's about 1,000 times more than the brain or the gut.
Right.
You guys here's something that this is what changed. I had only seen fascia in cadavers, and so in cadavers or in chicken, fascia kind of looks like. The best way to describe it, I think, is fascia kind of looks like fat, right? But let me show you live fascia.
That video is great.
This is the here.
Oh, now we're gonna watch
We watch an ad.
something for a pharmaceutical.
So
So
ironic.
apropos, right? So this is the fascia magnified 25 times. Just go on Google or on YouTube and put fascia magnified 25 times. Looks like a spider web, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you see how water is being carried through the fascia. And there's a fascial tubes and they're fibers and they carry water, they bind together. And this spider web of information, it's not just information, it holds the blood. You're going to see the blood passing through. And I'm going to move it ahead a little bit further just for time's sakes. And watch this. It shows how blood vessels are buried within the fascial net. See the blood vessels in there?
Yeah.
Okay. Now the interesting part. Here comes the best part. Let me show you where that fascia exists. This is the freaky part. This is the forearm of somebody's alive surgery. Okay, now that's trippy, right?
Yeah.
So here's the deal: is that 60% of the fascia in our body is actually between your neck and your pelvic floor. And we think of the organs being all in there in stasis, but really what it is, it's like a spider web, and the organs and everything's placed in that fascia. And that fascia is very sensitive. That's our body, okay? That's really our subconscious body, and I mean, according to Harvard. It's the fascia really is the connective tissue. Information travels on fascia through at the speed of thought, so it's faster than the nervous system, and it even starts to come into question about the proprioceptive model of even walking. Right, the autonomic programs of walking it requires proprioception. I put my foot down. If I don't get the right signal, something changes. My brain changes, and then I don't want to actually move the next foot. Or if you've ever stepped down a stair and missed it, and what happens. So the fascial network is sending information back and forth, sometimes thousands of times before nerves are. So really, if we were to just take a look at that understanding and look at the fascia that way and say, how does that impact the muscle? How does it impact the way the brain's proprioception works and information travels in the body? I just think that we've been looking at it the wrong way, and we don't have the answer either. But what we are using is we're using the information as it is right now to help people align and heal their bodies. And in doing that, we're having the results because we're looking at the body a different way.
Por ejemplo, one of the things we talked about right before the show is which way to push on muscle fibers, and that's, I think our audience can really connect to that. Could you kind of go into that a little bit?
You mean like a massage?
Massage.
Okay, so
if you want to use me, you can.
Okay, actually, why don't I use Mike this time because I did it.
Backfire. He was like, please touch me.
Okay, please touch. So that should feel pretty good. And I'm communicating to your brain. I'm saying open to the muscle, right? But as soon as I go this way, and you'll feel it even go right up into spinous capitis. You feel this going up, and then I go back this way. Oh, that's good.
It's like petting a dog.
Yeah, so like petting a dog.
You don't want to pet the dog the wrong way.
So what happens is that we've been told to massage towards the heart.
Right.
Traditional belief out there, we don't do that. We only massage in the line of fascia. So this feels good. Again, if I go this way, you'll start to feel it tightening up in the shoulders. So the idea is that in a massage, normal massages, they do petrissage and effleurage, and they're back and forth like this, and it's open, close, open, close. One of the interesting things is we designed a massage called Body Flow, and it only touches you only in the direction of the fascial lines. And at the
keep going.
Oh, okay.
I have a question about that, though.
Okay, and then when you're done, the unique experience is everybody says, first of all, you can visually see the decompression in the body after a massage, but people get up and say, I'm really relaxed, but I want to go work out. Rather than I'm really relaxed, I want to go to sleep. And that's because we're facilitating revitalization. And the reason why, and it's very, very different. You guys are going to have a chance to experience it here shortly. But when you have a body flow massage, it's completely different than any other massage. And we called it, we nicknamed it the best massage you'll ever have because the first 100 people that came out and continues to be years later, they say it's the best massage I've ever had. And it's not about the therapist, again. The therapists are great, but it's about the process. And that's what we really want.
You just talked about moving along the fascial lines and distinguishing between what we understand as sort of muscular massage versus fascial massage. But isn't fascia sort of interwoven in vertical and horizontal lines?
100%. And it's interwoven. It's in a muscle fiber. It wraps the actual fibers. It wraps the belly, and then it wraps all the muscle around it. It wraps the bone, and then it wraps the organs. It wraps everything. Basically, think of fascia as being your inside skin. So take off your skin and then shrink wrap the body, and that would be what fascia looks like. Whoa.
So it is what you're getting at, Kenny. It's like if it's going every which way, every which
so
direction, how is going one way going with it and going the other way not going with it?
Right.
Is that what you're saying?
Or why not moving laterally?
No, so there's lines. Okay, fascia has lines of force which maintain the posture and structure of the body.
Force lines.
Okay, so
got it.
So fascia is what maintains our posture and structure. It's actually the lines of force. And what you'll see in somebody is that they'll have a hip that's out, and all of a sudden you'll get a really tight line up through the obliques, and it looks, and you touch it, and you can feel it's hard. Just a line there, and that's actually because the hip wasn't working properly, and the body compensated by putting a line of fascia tightness there, so when it helps lift the hip. And so the fascia will adapt. Fascia is constantly adapting to the environment, and it's changing the way that the body structure. But also you think about this. You have a knot in your shoulder, right? Why is that knot there? Knots have a very specific purpose in our body. That's our brain's best way of maintaining posture, alignment, balance, and control through all the compensations. That's what knots are. And so when you go to a therapist and they say, oh yeah, let me rub that knot out of your shoulder. If you don't understand why that knot is there and what it's connected to and how it's affecting your mechanics, rubbing it out is the worst thing you can do. So it's understanding, again, back to an integrated approach, understanding why we're touching the body, what the purpose is, what we need to touch, and when and what order. And releasing muscles and getting alignment is required. The order is super important. If the wrong order occurs, then the body fights you. So it's about being sequential and doing it within the lines of force.
Something super practical that you had mentioned, I think it might be worthwhile for some of the people that follow us, is that relationship between the soleus and the traps. Because a lot of people could be hearing you go, well, I mean, everybody that listens to this show has tight traps. So if you were to describe that very briefly, what would you?
Well, let's two things. Okay, first of all, anterior. One of the problems we have is sitting. So we sit. As soon as we sit, pull the chair over here. Wow, that sounds so different with a headset on. So as soon as we sit, this anterior chain is tightening. Fair statement.
Mm-hmm.
It's adapting. It's trying to, and the posterior chain is loosening. So when I get up, the first response is to go like this, right? Open up. When you've been sitting in a car for a while. And that's what we're fighting against. First of all the mechanics in the body are fighting against the sitting process because we weren't designed to sit. So that's first and foremost. And when we sit, what we're doing is is the muscles and the fascia shortening. So what's happening is the quads are tightening. As soon as the quads tighten, you think about this, it causes an anterior tilt. Mm-hmm. And if you put your hand on my trap, neutral, okay. Then anterior tilt, feel the trap engaging? Yep. So as soon as the reason why it happens is my brain, as soon as my hips go anterior, my brain thinks I'm going to fall over. So it starts engaging the posterior chain to keep me stable and in balance. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it's trying to figure out the GCM.
So then on top of that, there's other lines of force that exist. That's the primary one that causes the traps to engage. So most people have tight neck, tight traps, and the primary reason is because there's the quads are too tight. And then the second part of it is there's parts of the calf, like the soleus itself, has a direct reflection on the very top line of the trap muscle from the attachment up into the neck. And so when the soleus gets tight, we found this, like we had clients that come back with a repeating neck problem. And so our whole thing is, if you have to come back to us, it's because we didn't do something right. And I don't mean I mean if we have to come back to fix something. We expect people to get tune-ups, like 1 to 3 or 4 times a year, depending on what kind of work they're doing. But if you're coming back to us and we're fixing something, it's mean because we missed something. So every time that somebody comes back to us, we document it, we look at it, and we try to figure it out. And we started noticing these patterns and behaviors between certain muscles in the calf and certain muscles in the shoulder. And so if you think about, we think about all these muscles being separate, but they're all covered by fascia, they're all connected in fascial lines, and all our fascial lines meet here on the palms, top of the head, right below the belly button, and at the bottom of the feet. So every fascial line in your body meets there. Consequently, when we were doing therapy on you, you were communicating with a fascial line. So that's why even stretching.
That was kind of funny. They're like, just rub your thumb. I was like,
oh, well, actually.
Okay.
Okay. Can we do something right now? Can we
Sure.
Okay, grab that pillow there. This will be funny.
Do I get to hit it?
So Mike, yeah, you can do that. So let's do a Mike, once you get down and do just a regular hip flexor stretch. And put this leg past 90 degrees. Okay, fall into your hip, forward. As far as you can go, it gets stretched. Okay. Now take and rub the inside of that thumb. Just rub it. Now keep pushing into that hip. Watch the hip open up. So the hip, you feel it? It's loosening up. Tell me that's not crazy. Now do one other thing. Take this hand, put it up like this, flex the palm back, lock the elbow, and slightly rotate the shoulder, going this way. Kind of go like this. Now you're going to feel that in your hip there. You feel that?
Mm-hmm.
So what you're doing is you're stretching the fascia line. Hand has to go back and lock the elbow. There you go. And now you're opening up the hip. Now stretch further. It's opening up the hip. You see that? Tell me that's not weird.
Quite a bit more. Yeah, that was a bigger difference than the thumb even.
But those are two fascial lines. One stretching, one is communicating, right? And so understanding how all those lines work. What we discovered this by accident. We were working on somebody, and
can we just go back and describe for people listening, just real quick?
Yeah.
So they put Mike on one knee,
hip flexor stretch,
into basic hip flexor stretch. Put his shoulder into flexion and then wrist into extension, flexion, and then he rubbed the inside of his paw, and then magic happened, and then.
And the other one was a rotation of the shoulder, but it has to be, if one rotation is loosening it, one rotation tightens the hip. So it's also the
wind and unwind.
And this wind and unwind. That's why we call our therapy unwinding and decompressing. And the other part about it is that the joints are connected, like your ankles and your wrists are connected, your elbows and your knees are connected, and your hips and your shoulders are connected. So when I have somebody who has problems with their, like say doing push-up, they can't flex their hands back, I can go work on opening up their ankles, and then they go back, and all of a sudden they can move that hand again. So there's a relationship between all these different fascial lines in the body, and we're just beginning to understand, because this is only 6 months ago, and this was quite a shock to us when we discovered it. It put us on a new line of thought. And I hope even by communicating this to people that we're just about helping people understand the human body. And I know there's other people out there that are probably merging on or getting close to things that we're doing, or maybe even advanced and farther ahead of us. And I hope by even communication like this, we can bring a community of people together to help understand this, because our understanding of the human body is actually quite limited. And I think that over the next 10 years, it's going to open up to ways that we never thought. We're just changing the paradigm. There was a time we thought the earth was flat. And if you can imagine being around a kitchen table talking to your kids about the earth being flat, can you imagine the conversations you have about their job, their life, where they travel, the moon, the stars, the sun, and then all of a sudden the earth is round, and it changes everything. Most of what we know about the human body the theory of how it operates hasn't really changed in 3,000 years. You know, the brain is in charge, the heart does this, the muscles do this. And we've just added more information on top of that current theory, but now it's time to change the theory. And instead of having a flat earth theory, we have a round earth. And instead of having a flat body theory, we got a functional round body theory. We just need to change the way we think of the body. And if we have that change in our mindset, we're going to discover new things. And that's what's happening every day here. It's not any one person in here that innovates. Our entire team innovates. And it's predominantly because of one of our values. Our second value in our business is always look for a better way. We assume nothing, make no assumptions, and we test everything.
What's the first value? You started with the second one.
Show caring in all that we do. We make things simple.
I noticed.
We make things
did
simple.
a good job of that.
Yeah, make things simple. Mm-hmm. We're honorable in all of our relationships. We're fanatical in completion, and we have fun. That's it. It's really simple. And you come in here, you guys saw this morning as we started to operate. It's not just you. It's because you're here. People have fun here. People coming in, sitting down.
I'm
over
not
on the
special. No, it was a fun environment for sure. There was a lot of really good positive energy.
And people actually, one of their biggest problems is people want to come here and hang out, and we're limited in space. So, and we're moving to a new location sometime next 6 to 9 months, just depending on where we go and zoning and stuff like that. But we'll have a place big enough for people to sit, and hang out.
People want to find out more about what you guys have going on. Where should they go? Or maybe should they go nowhere?
Well, right now, all we have is you can go to Facebook, and we just started Instagram a month ago. So we don't have a lot of information out there, but we're starting to craft information to help explain what we're doing and how way that we think. So you'll see us we have a blog that's out, and you can start reading it, and the content that goes into these posts and these blogs and stuff like that eventually starts to form our communication model, which is our website, our material, and stuff like that. But it's also new. So as you can experience, it's hard to explain what we do, isn't it? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So instead of us trying to explain what we do, because there's no context for a reference, people go, is it chiropractic? Is it physical therapy? What is it? So we just let people give their experience.
I would assign this sort of sentence to it. It's a very useful, holistic approach.
Sure.
It's not completely binary. Like you might be coming back a week later, banged up with the same things. It's like, you're looking at this thing through a very comprehensive lens.
Yeah, and we're using the body to heal the body. Like, for example, the primary focus of our work is really simple. Is that your nervous system knows more about all the math and compensations than I ever could. So instead of me trying to tell your shoulder what to do, I present a problem that your nervous system has to resolve. And so what we do is we create a series of about 300 or 400 problems over the course of 6 treatments that the brain or the nervous system has to resolve, and the resolution is actually the compensation, and the compensation is the positive one. Because compensations don't have to be bad; they can be good too. And so that's how I describe what we do. We're producing logical problems that the brain has to solve.
Very cool.
Wow.
This video is going to be online for quite some time. You guys don't have a website up right now, but is that likely to change in the near future?
Yeah,
Do you know what that address is going to be?
Oh, we have an address. It's a landing page. It's www.humangarage.net.
Mm-hmm.
And eventually we'll put up content, but most of the content you're going to see is light descriptions of who we are, how to get to us, but mostly it's our client stories. Because what is the business? It's really just a collection of clients that have been served, and so I mean, who really cares at the end of the day what we say? I can say all the things I want to say, but at the end of the result, just check with what our clients say, and that's really how you can measure us.
Mm-hmm.
Excellent. Yeah. Thanks for joining us today.
Yeah, it was
Thanks
fantastic.
for having us.
Good to have
and
you. That was
treating us.
fun.
Yeah.
It was fun.
Fantastic.